damage videos now coming out of the lower Ninth Ward. In fact, New Orleans Fire Department asking for all emergency services personnel that are available to please report there due to the severity of the damage there, with people actually trapped inside homes and buildings. So this is going to be a developing situation throughout the night. I'm sure as you watch the late news tonight or wake up tomorrow morning, this is probably going to be one of those stories that we follow throughout the rest of the evening into tomorrow, as a pretty significant tornado, Jared, has passed through a major metropolitan area. And this is day 2 of the severe weather. Yesterday in Texas, numerous tornadoes. Jared, I'm not sure if you got to see the one in Round Rock, where actually KView had the Skycam on the tornado, and it actually hit the camera while they were on air.
Yes, and the camera kept running.
It did. That's right. I mean, it kept running. I think they took like a brief power hit, but they were able to get it back up and going in no time. So it's produced a lot of tornadoes north of the Dallas Metroplex yesterday, and especially in the Austin area. Today, it's more in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. Just James Spann was on just about an hour ago with a tornado warning in Tuscaloosa. I know there was some damage in Hale County. And Jared, that actually is making its way to the East Coast. And that is why we're on tonight, as we face another severe weather threat. And honestly, Jared, we were talking before the show, this may be our first legit severe weather threat where something may actually pan out. I know we've had a few flirtings. Is that a word, flirting?
It can be.
Yeah, flirting.
For this it is.
We flirted with the threat of severe weather over the last couple of weeks, but this could be another threat that we all have to deal with. And honestly, Jared, a slight risk for all of South Carolina, and I would say 90% of North Carolina. The mountains of North Carolina are in that marginal risk, a level 1, everybody else in a level 2. The newest update will come out after midnight as the day 1 advisory. So I honestly don't think any of that will change, just from what I've been looking at. Jared, you may have an opinion on that, but I don't see much change in that as this system continues to move into the Carolinas overnight into your Wednesday.
Yeah, completely agree. And again, I think I think the slight risk is warranted unless we see more destabilization than we expect. The models were kind of back and forth on that a little bit today, but they have been trending back down. Really not seeing there's a couple things that are going to limit this. That are potential limiters on this, and something that we got to do is we got to tell you not only what could happen, but also might not happen. That sometimes gets lost in this, and I want to make sure that everybody knows. Like, there's a couple things going on with this. One, there's not as much upper air support. There's certainly a decent low level jet. There's good wind shear and everything there, but the surface low is going to be well to the north and west at that point. The surface low is not going to be, it's going to be closer to Ohio. They had to cancel their severe weather awareness week tornado drill, actually, that was scheduled for tomorrow because of the risk for severe weather today or tomorrow up there. So so that's where the surface low is going to be. So you're going to have that natural low level wind shear there. The wind shear does look good. I will say that it still looks good. And this is still a decently strong front, but the other limiting factor is that it looks like it's moving a little faster, and if it's moving a little bit faster, that's not going to give us as much time to destabilize. Cloud cover ahead of it certainly looks to be fairly thick, and thickening as the day goes on. So we'll see what happens, and if some showers get going in that warm advection regime behind the warm front, which can happen. I mean, we've seen that before. If that does pan out, then that's obviously going to put a damper on as well. But
yeah, you're right, Jared. I mean, for Western Carolinas, the models over the last couple of runs, the rapid refresh models and things like that, has really showed that shower activity really blossoming as we get around the sunrise area of time, 6-7 o'clock in the morning. And if that happens, with cloud cover, we're not really going to be able to destabilize that atmosphere because the clouds have really started to move in here and will eventually continue to increase, over the night into other areas. I think you've got the Futurecast pulled up here.
Yeah, absolutely do. And again, if we're looking down here, let me tweak this real quick. A little bit of It's a new look. It's a new look for the station. I got a new arm. I got, just new stuff. So still getting kind of used to this here. So got to make sure I look at the proper camera. But yeah, as we see on the Futurecast here, this is 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. If there's one thing that I like about the time change, it's the fact that it makes the DST math, the time zone math, a little bit easier. So I can see 12Z and it's like, oh, -4. Okay, that's a lot easier. Anyway, so here is so this is the 18Z. This is a 2 o'clock GF high res rapid refresh, valid about 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, and you can see that we'll probably already have some showers and thunderstorms ongoing in western North Carolina and the upstate of South Carolina around Greenville. Maybe some heavy downpours here. Winds coming out of the south, and we are expecting to see these winds kick up even outside of thunderstorms throughout the day. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. If you got loose stuff outside, if you've got stuff that you want to, that you don't want becoming a projectile, or at least rolling down the street to your neighbor's house, good idea to bring that stuff in tonight. March is a windy month. It's a transitional season, and there's a reason why they say go fly a kite in March, and we've certainly seen that so far. So again, zooming out a little bit, you can see this is your ragged line of thunderstorms here, and again, this is going to be going through kind of a somewhat of a weakening phase. As we look at the instability, there's really not much to work with here. It's that light blue down there. You can't even really see it. I'll pan that up so you can see it around my name. Most of your instability is going to be once again found in, far southern Georgia, around the Gulf Coast of Florida, Tallahassee, that area. And the last couple of events, we've had situations where the moisture flow from the southwest, the convection along the Gulf Coast tends to disturb the upstream convection in the Carolinas. A very nerdy way of saying that the rain down there basically wrings out the atmosphere and kind of leaves us with kind of second helpings, table scraps, when it comes to the moisture, which is good. we like that. But it is a forecast problem, and it is something that we're going to have to work with, something that we're going to have to watch closely. So let's go to noon here. And by noon, we have the potential for maybe a few showers. Again, we talked about the potential for maybe a few showers forming ahead of it. And certainly the model seems to think that maybe there could be a couple showers popping up ahead of it. Again, we're not expecting anything like discrete supercells or anything like that. That's good news here. But you have your line of showers and thunderstorms moving into that slight risk area by about noon. And so Greenville, probably some showers and thunderstorms still ongoing. Columbia, probably on deck. Augusta, very much, getting into the act. Charlotte, Greensboro by noon or so. You'll start getting in the act with some of this rain and potential for strong thunderstorms with gusty winds. Let's zoom forward to about 4 o'clock. So we're thinking about going home from work for the day, and then we have a broken line of thunderstorms continuing to push eastward. Some of these cells, they look pretty good. We'll go to the updraft helicity tracks, and you can see that the model certainly seems to feel like that these could be, stronger storms with some rotation in them. And again, rotation doesn't always equal a tornado. It often means that it just is an updraft that will sustain itself a little bit longer and be a little bit more organized. Pull up the instability here, and you'll notice that the model does print out quite a bit of instability to the north. But I will also say that in perusing the 18Z runs, the high-res rapid refresh has been on the high end of this. So as far as like the available instability. So that's something to keep in mind here is that we're showing you this, we're showing you the high-res rapid refresh, but understand that, subsequent runs will, again, this updates every hour, which is great. We get 48 hours every 6 hours. Sorry if that was confusing, but
we like those every 6 hour runs.
Yeah, and that's what we're showing you here. And so again, we're going out a little bit further into the future here, but but when we get into like 6 o'clock or so, prime drive time, possibly in the Charleston metro area, we could be looking at showers, maybe a few thunderstorms moving through again. Gusty winds, the main concern here from this. Damaging straight line winds are the main concern. A tornado is possible, especially on the leading edge of the line. If it is still organized as a line, it's hard to say. These may not be the best organized storms by the time they get here. Hail is also a possibility in the strongest updrafts, but we don't think that is going to be a major concern. But it is still possible, and so we're going to be watching for that. But again, and then this kind of hangs out at the coast. The initial front gets through, the severe weather threat, moves off South Carolina coast and potentially goes into the late evening or even around midnight. This is midnight here now, up in eastern North Carolina. We'll have to see. But again, I think some of the limiting factors there is that you really don't have a lot of instability to work with, and any instability that you would be working with at that point could be elevated. And so that elevated instability means that thunderstorm is not getting root at the surface, which means it has a harder time getting strong wind gusts down, and it can not get a tornado. It still produce some hail.
I'm going to tell you, Jared, what I think may happen when we kind of look back this time tomorrow night. I think the wind, even outside of those thunderstorms, like you were talking about, they're going to be pretty gusty.
Yeah.
And with the heavy rain threat, I think we could also see some localized flooding that I know. I think there's like a marginal risk for flooding
Yes.
for parts of the Carolinas. And looking back at the history of this system, it's produced some flooding in Mississippi today, in Louisiana and Texas, just because each of these individual cells are moving, but the system in a whole is pretty large.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of heavy rain behind the initial line of stronger storms. And so if you get what we call training of storms, and think of it like a train, if you put something on that rail, that railroad, train after train after train is going to pass through it. And so if you find yourself in that little line of storms, that's where you could really rack up some higher rainfall totals in a short amount of time. And we could see some flooding from that as well. So I know we have that damage and wind threat, the tornado threat. I agree with Jared. I don't think we see much of a hail threat, but I do think that flood threat may not be, not that we're not talking about it, but it's not been talked about a lot. And I think that could cause some issues for some areas that really see those storms that kind of train over the same area time after time.
Yeah. I will also say that this is kind of a tale of two Carolinas here when it comes to the rain issues. The western side, you're doing okay. But when you're getting into eastern parts of South Carolina, North Carolina, we're in a drought. The State Drought Commission actually met today. The Department of Natural Resources noted that the state is now in incipient drought, according to their calculations. And according to the U.S. Drought Monitor, we've been in a stage 2 of 4. Or no, it's not a 2 of 4. It was a moderate drought, I think. But either way, we're in a drought. We need the rain. We're running way behind. It's been very hard to bust a drought. It's very hard to bust a drought.
It is. And even in drought situations, if you get a lot of heavy rain in a short amount of time, you can see a lot of runoff that creates flooding too. It's not the dry ground. You really need one of those day or two, just light soaking rains to really kind of moisten up the ground. But when you it's like pouring a bucket of water on one location, the ground can only suck up so much, and then it starts to overfill. So, and also, Jared, a lot up here in the Western Carolinas is the grass is still dormant. It's finally starting to grow as we really warm up and the growing season's kicking off, but there's still a lot of dormant grass, and dormant grass is kind of nothing at all. The water doesn't really soak into the ground, so it just kind of runs off as well. So the flooding concern is there, and like you said, the gusty wind concern as well. I see we have a question here from Michael asking, will we see mostly QLCS tornadoes or damage and wind? I what you were showing there just a minute ago, Jared, on the Futurecast, if we were to see any QLCS tornadoes, and basically what that is imagine the squall line that Jared was showing on the Futurecast. And a QLCS is kind of like an S curve. Anytime you see like a little S curve, that's where you could see a quick spin up of a tornado. So QLCS tornadoes are definitely possible tomorrow, but I think it's honestly, and I think Jared agrees with me, you would have to get east of 77 before that tornado threat really ramps up.
Yeah, and again, I think the definitely prepare for damaging winds. I will also say that QLCS tornadoes being possible, they spin up very fast. They are very quick to spin up, and they are very quick to spin down. Usually maybe 1 or 2 radar scans, and that's it. So
that's a great point. So you may not get that tornado warning. I could envision tomorrow may be one of those days where you get that severe thunderstorm warning with the tornado tag possible in it to kind of address that QLCS feature where a scan or two on the radar, and we all know around here, Jared, how radars work. They're not the best anyway.
No,
and then you get a
not.
QLCS set up. It's
Yep.
hard to detect those quick spin ups, and that's what we call them, quick spin ups. They're there for a frame or two, and then they've dissipated. So,
yeah, and Scotty, I'm going to bring this back up because a couple things I've been looking at while we were talking here is. And I'm going to just swap that out. There we go. Playing producer here. So this is a newer model run. This is 23Z. This is maxed out. This is at the end. This is 1 o'clock. Notice something interesting. Cluster thunderstorms in Charlotte. It seems to think that the model seems to think that maybe some of the stronger storms will be in Charlotte and Greensboro. But look how much weaker the line is compared to, say, get that back to 18Z here. There's 1 o'clock there. You can also see kind of that speeding up trend, even in this high resolution model here. This is 1 o'clock. This is 1 o'clock here. So again, as Scotty mentioned before, the models are speeding this up. And there's that Gulf convection. Look at that. You see that line of thunderstorms. There's that Gulf convection again. And maybe the model is responding to the possibility that it could be having some impacts upstream on that. So again, we're going to be watching these model runs as they go tomorrow. Precision at this time frame too, guys, is kind of foolhardy. To get too much precision out here is a little tough. But we'll we'll be keeping an eye on how things evolve tomorrow. I think that's the most important thing. And then I'm watching the 0Z run come in right now, and it is even a little bit faster. So
yeah. And Jared, kind of looking at today, there was a moderate risk of severe weather, which is a level 4 or 5 for Mississippi. And the fear today was, unfortunately, we did see this supercell develop in New Orleans that we started the show off with. But the fear today was there was going to be numerous supercells that developed. And that line was about an hour to 2 hours ahead of schedule. And when those supercells or storms were about to turn into supercells were really getting its act together, they were being ingested by that line because the line was moving so fast. That line, honestly, I know there were a lot of tornado warnings out today for Mississippi, but I think that squall line really saved that Mississippi a lot today because those supercells weren't able to get going and kind of be their own storm. They were always being ingested by that line as it quickly moved through the state.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of competition for him, and that's that's actually common failure mode for these in Dixie Alley. I mean, not to say that I don't think anybody in the 9th Ward of New Orleans thinks it was a failure mode by any stretch of the imagination. They certainly got hit, and tornadoes are tornadoes, very dangerous storms, and they doesn't matter what's spawning them, whether it's a supercell, leading edge of a thunderstorm, line of thunderstorms, anything like that. They are very, very, they're dangerous, but they are more dangerous when they're spawned by thunderstorms that are not competing with each other, that are more isolated. And the thing about the Southeast is that oftentimes storms congeal into lines very fast. And we saw that again today. And that might have saved a worse day.
I know. I think today there was a 15% hatch. Yes. And those hatch means long track potential strong tornadoes. And again, we kind of talk about New Orleans tonight, but kind of looking at the big picture, we didn't really see a lot of those today develop. So, that's like Jared was saying, once they got going, they were immediately competing with that squall line that was racing through the state. So they didn't really get to mature and really and blossom, and that's a good thing. You can there's nothing but good things when that happens.
Yep. This is an interesting question, but from Jeremy. Why is it always a bust in Carolinas for severe weather? Well, it's not always. Now, if we have a level 1 out of 5 marginal risk day, it's usually just bonkers. But it is interesting, especially this year so far, that we've had a few slight risk days at this point. We've had several slight risk days. We had one last Saturday here in Charleston. For my Charleston followers, I'm sorry. None of us saw that lack of production coming. That was just crazy. We're not going to, but it does not look like that we're going to have kind of the same kind of major bust that we saw on Saturday. But again, a lot of it, a lot of it will have to do with, sometimes terrain effects up in the mountains that can, be tough to resolve. Honestly, I would say that the place you want to be, nobody wants to be in a place with severe weather, but really the place that gets severe weather is Eastern North Carolina. Usually severe thunderstorm forecast for there works out pretty well. Typically. So, because it's the trajectories have a little bit more time on land from the south. And so that will help ingest some of that less marine layer air there. So again, that's one thing. Closer in Charleston here, oftentimes the shelf waters will tend to stabilize the atmosphere kind of close to the surface, something that's really tough to resolve. A model really it's very tough for a model to resolve that. There's not the vertical resolution to do that. So we paint with a broad brush. Studies have been conducted on this. One of our, a guest we had on the show a while back, Trevor Gibbs, when he was at College of Charleston doing research he did research on this very thing. And what they found was that it was inconclusive. It was inconclusive whether the shelf waters actually played a role in storms fizzling out or not. Sometimes they do. Tomorrow could be one of those days where it does. And the reason why I say that is that there's not really any good supporting surface features. There's not really any good supporting upper air features. So that's why I think that there could be, that things could calm down. If a sea breeze develops, intensify things briefly inland and then fizzle them out, because then that'll affect more of that marine layer air inland too.
You also have the wedge, the CAD, the Carolina wedge, that can hamper a severe weather threat. We always know the CAD, you can never underestimate it. Models have a hard time eroding that. Sometimes it hangs longer, and that kills a severe weather threat. But the CAD can also amplify a severe weather threat. If you get a retreating CAD and you get that warm front and that cold, dense air, you can get something called a triple point, and you can get tornadoes or tornadic rotating storms to develop there. Jared, you alluded to the mountains. Anytime that I see an event coming straight west to east, the mountains are always going to play havoc on those storms. You really have to watch those storms that come out of Georgia, Alabama, that southwest to northeast orientation. That always worries us as meteorologists here in the Carolinas. No matter if you're where Jared's at or where I'm at, anytime you can get storms moving from the southwest to the northeast, that's always a concern, because it's just an open alley of warm Gulf air, and it normally 9 times out of 10 will spell some pretty decent severe weather events for our area. Not all the time, but you can if you see that coming up, you can bank at least a couple of storms will be pretty rowdy throughout that event.
Yep, absolutely. So, again, we're going to have southwest flow tomorrow. We're going to have that. We're going to have good. Again, the wind shear is going to be good. The question is, will it be too much? That you can have too much wind shear. But I was looking 40, 45 knots of bulk shear. So, that's right in the sweet spot there. So again, it just depends on instability. If you see the sun peak out tomorrow, that's not really what we're rooting for. We're not rooting for that tomorrow. That could help destabilize things a little bit more. So something to keep in mind as well. So
sunshine is not your friend on days like tomorrow.
Sunshine is not your friend on days like tomorrow. But with any luck, we'll get through this pretty fast. And again, for much of North Carolina, as I mentioned before, the 0Z is coming in, Scotty, and you can see behind me here. This is noon. We've been looking at noon as kind of a benchmark here. Now we have we have showers and storms possibly getting into Raleigh at that point and approaching I-95. So again, it's and again with some of the stronger convection to the south.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the radar right now, and let me pull up. I had it over New Orleans, so let me pull it back up towards our area and kind of see where that front's situated at right now, because I know we're getting a lot of lightning and rain moving through the Birmingham, Alabama into more eastern Alabama. And so, normally when you have that, at a normal pace, north of Georgia, upstate of South Carolina, you could see rain by a couple, 3 o'clock in the morning. So this thing is really moving quicker. And honestly, if you don't want severe weather, you want it to move as fast as it can, because if it moves through in the morning time, the instability is just not there like it would be if it was 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Typically. Yeah. But again, let's, and I think that's a good segue to talk about kind of, what's going on to our west. And I think it's important to note that we're not expecting a repeat of that here. But as Leslie points out, Port New Orleans got hit hard tonight, and they are taking it on the chin. Actually, as we speak, they took it on the chin earlier from a damaging tornado that went through, that went around the lower ninth ward of New Orleans. But you can see here, even on this kind of lower resolution kind of radar mosaic, you can see the individual cells and the circulations here. What I'm going to do is I actually have the high resolution radar up out of there. It looks like that these have weakened some. There's no active tornado warnings on these right now, which is that's a relief, honestly. We'll punch that up. You can see the high res radar here again. This is that line of storms, but earlier, maybe move it back here just a little bit. So there's your, and this may not be the exact time, but again, you had there's your tornado report. I'm pointing at it right now. That was in Orleans Parish, and that moved northeastward. That moved northeastward just very close to Slidell and Pearl River, but it looks like it has lost some of its structure. Let's go to velocity here and look for anything there. It definitely looks like it has weakened some, and that is a very, very, very good thing. There's a lot of problems down there tonight, and God, I hope everyone was sheltered and safe.
And Jared, scary situation. Obviously, you don't want a large tornado like that at any time, but this was, as the sun was setting, it was dark. So nocturnal tornadoes are never good at all, especially one that big. And then you think of the Ninth Ward, and if you think back to Hurricane Katrina, that was a hard hit area. This is not a very it's a I don't know how. It's not the best place to be. The structures are not soundly built. You got to remember, this is kind of an area that was hit already by Hurricane Katrina and never really was able to recover from that. But still, people live there, and just the devastation is. I'm afraid this is going to be a big news story for days to come.
And keep in mind, they're still coming back from last year's hurricane.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So so that's the thing that we've got to be careful of, is that there's Louisiana has taken it on the chin since 2020 and earlier, but certainly since 2020. They've just no luck for them, and I feel horrible, and I hope that everyone is okay tonight, and I hope that everybody can recover well, because it's not a good situation there right now, for sure.
It's not. I'm just looking and looking through Twitter here, and the videos are starting to come out. There's a lot of pictures, a lot of images of Snapchat maps, and I'm just looking through this, and I'm afraid that this is going to be a story that we talk about for a couple of days, just because of just the devastation and the damage that's been done in a big major metropolitan city. It's not good.
Yeah, no doubt. I want to take us back to the Futurecast real quick. I know that we're going to be, it's 9:34 right now. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have us out over here around 9:45. So again, we would love to hear your questions. You'll have us for another 15 minutes or so. So if you have questions, please just hit us up in the comment box down there. We'll be happy to take those questions for you. I've been looking at the new high-res rapid refresh run, the 0Z run. This is the long run. This is a new long run that's coming in, and this is set up at 4 o'clock, and you have a broken line of thunderstorms. Some of these are looking kind of interesting, Scotty. You have kind of little single cellular guys here. Instability, a little bit better inland, but also could be slightly overdone if we compare some of these with some other runs there. There's the 3 kilometer NAM, which has been really hot garbage But but you can see here that a lot of these models are not too bullish on the amount of instability here, and I think the high res might be running a little bit hot. But again, it is a possibility, and this is a range of solutions that we're looking at here, and and again, we go into get into that afternoon, depending on when that gets there. Gets there around 3 or 4 o'clock. I mean, again, this gets into the Charleston area. Still kind of looking around dinner time, commute time. But yeah, it is certainly interesting to see again some of those cells coming out of Georgia as I just kind of rock back and forth here between about noon and 4 o'clock. Definitely could have some, stronger storms happening here, and it looks like the linear segment is going to be a little bit further to the south. So again, a couple interesting things to watch here, for sure. Trey Allen asks, could the cloud cover and rain tomorrow morning help limit severe threat? We hope so. It very, very, very likely could.
Yeah.
Earlier the rain, the better.
Yeah, I think if you're wanting a limited threat, that can only help, to limit the threat. And Jared, you made a point that I think we need to get back on the coverage of the storms along the Gulf Coast. That kind of, if we see those storms really get going around the Panhandle of Florida, that can really rob some of that moisture being transported into the Carolinas. And also that's another factor that could help limit the severe weather potential. And I just seen the latest update, and there's still a level 3 threat for Northwest Florida tonight for that severe weather potential. So that is something we'll have to watch too. That can also kind of help limit that moisture, that much needed moisture, and kind of those dew points to really get things going. Not all the time, but sometimes that can also help limit the severe weather potential for us.
Yep, absolutely. One other thing that I'm looking at, Scotty, that we want to talk about is the low level jet. What the heck are you talking about? Low level jet. Well, this is about 5,000 feet up, roughly at the 850 millibar level. That's usually what I use to approximate it. And one thing that you'll note here, I've got the wind barbs up here, and I realize that probably, let me see if I can let's do this. Yeah, that's a much better way to do this. All right. That is a much better way to do this. Let me turn that off. Let me turn that off. And we'll just show you the 850 winds. So this is here's noon tomorrow again. Looks like we do have some pretty, we have a fairly decent low level jet that is coming across, kind of associated with some of these storms. Moving along, and so that will help with the wind shear. That will help transport some gustier winds to the surface, even outside of thunderstorms. 20-30 mile an hour gusts, certainly a possibility, maybe even a little bit more. So that's certainly something that we're going to want to keep an eye on as well tomorrow. I haven't seen any wind advisories, but I'll certainly be watching for that. But as we go into time, you'll notice that some of those little low-level jet streaks, 35, 40 knots, that's nothing, that's nothing to sneeze at. It's not the strongest we've seen around here. But yeah, I think that, I think that will work out quite well. So
Jared, we do have a what we call a lake wind advisory out for the Midlands of South Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we do have that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I wouldn't be surprised if they did one for Moultrie too, actually.
Probably so. And I think the North Carolina mountains, the higher elevations, have a wind advisory out as well. But
there is a lake wind advisory for Lake Moultrie as well. So one other thing to note is I watched the model run continue to come in. And when we get into about 8 o'clock, we do see the low level jet look like it's intensifying in eastern North Carolina, just west of I-95. So Raleigh, maybe Greensboro here. So that's going to be a variable that we're going to want to watch closely. Match that up with the reflectivity, though, and you'll see that a lot of the convection is east of it, and that is a good thing. Hopefully that is how this plays out. We do not want a 50 knot low level jet feeding directly into convection. That usually is not good. So great question from Tom Herman here, advising National Weather Service contact information for tomorrow's storm reports. So you're in Bridgeville. That is Dorchester County. That is the National Weather Service in Charleston, South Carolina. So a couple ways that you can do that. If you're a train spotter, they have a secret number. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to do that. It's a very special number for all of our train spotters. And before we go, I'm going to tell you about an opportunity that we have coming up next week. to train as an advanced spotter. So that's going to be really cool. But National Weather Service in Charleston on Twitter at NWS Charleston SC, nws.charlestonsc@noaa.gov. They take email reports too. Good for sending pictures. Twitter is really good for sending pictures. Facebook is really good for sending pictures. But yeah, they are, and they will definitely be extremely thankful for your reports tomorrow. Everybody out there who is, who has a severe weather report, if you see hail, you see damaging winds, you see trees down, power lines down, things like that, definitely want to call that into the Weather Service when it's safe. Don't go chasing storms unless you know exactly what you're doing. Get a lot of trees here. This is not a great place to do that, but we have people who do it, and nothing against that.
All right, I got one more thing before we close out.
Yeah.
Okay. Because this could happen tomorrow, okay? This is from our buddy James Spann. He just got this email titled, "Hey Dirtwad, why was you on TV and no tornado warnings and I missed my show Family Feud? You Dirtwad. So please be nice to your meteorologist tomorrow. Here's James's. Dear Lisa, sorry you missed Family Feud. I'm actually happy we didn't have any quote-unquote tornado warnings at the time. Thanks for taking time to write and hope you have a better day tomorrow. Your pal, Dirtwad." So please, if you are watching TV tomorrow at any point during the day and your local broadcast meteorologist has to break in for coverage, they have to do that. It's a federal FCC law. You have to break in if there's tornado warnings, life-threatening weather information. Be nice. We know it may not be affecting your area, but it is affecting someone, and that life is just as important as anybody else's life. So be nice to your meteorologist. They're doing their job to keep you or your friends or your family or whoever may be in the path of that storm safe. So I promise you, you could probably hop on to your favorite network and you could probably live stream the show you missed the next day. So it's not like you're missing it.
And the good news is it's all in syndication anyway during the day.
That's right.
So
yeah, that's right.
I mean, so that tends to work out okay. So you'll be all right. It's really important information, and as Scotty alluded to, television stations have a licensee responsibility to promote programming in the public interest. And I can think of nothing more in the public interest than going on air and saying, "Hey, a tornado is coming." I think that's pretty public interest to me. So, but again, I think y'all are also a little bit more savvy. If you're watching us, if you watch us in the Carolina Weather Group, you watch us in the Carolina Weather Net, I feel like y'all are a little bit more sophisticated than, somebody who calls somebody dirtwad.
But that reminds me, next time we have James on the show, we're going to have to call him Dirtwad.
Absolutely. I think it's probably one of the only emails that he can replicate in full too. I'm pretty sure that I will say this. I was very impressed. No cursing. So I was impressed. Yeah. That was good. Yeah. That was good. It does show a little bit of diversity in the vocabulary there. But anyway, so before we close out, I did want to note that tomorrow, next Tuesday, March 29th at 7 p.m., you can sign up. We are joining up again with the National Weather Service in Columbia for an advanced Skywarn spotter class. Very exciting. We had a basic class a couple weeks ago. The attendance was phenomenal. A lot of new spotters came out of it. So if you attended that class or you've attended a Skywarn class in the past and you want to learn more about severe weather, about how that is forecast, about the forecast process there, about how it's detected, some of the tools of the trade that meteorologists use to, figure out, where the tornado is in the storm. Is it causing debris? You see some of this stuff in our coverage, but you can see how the National Weather Service guys do it. Tuesday, March 29th at 7 p.m., the advanced Skywarn spotter class will have details, sign up sheet, all the things. Got to register for it. So we will definitely get that link out a few more times in the Carolina Weather Group social channels before it's all said and done. But please mark that down and get ready to join us. It'll be a really, really good show. Definitely.
And this is the one where, especially if you're a weather, and I use this as not a bad thing. If you're a weather geek, this is one that you're really going to be wanting to get into, because we kind of get more into the details and the kind of dig into the science a little bit more and kind of get our nose in the book a little bit more to figure out what you can kind of see what's going on behind the scenes. So
Yep.
this second one for the events is really good, especially if you're really into weather. I think you all will enjoy that.
Yeah, they had to. I was fortunate. A weather service friend of mine was sitting at the table there, and it was a good thing he was, because I wanted to act like I'd been there before. But I was really so giddy that I just wanted to jump up and down the whole time. It was so much fun. It was just such a nerdly, wonderful thing. So, yeah. So yeah, we will. So anyway, so here's what we're going to do tomorrow, real quick before we go. If something, if something goes south, watch us on the Carolina Weather Net. We got to have a ticker running on the bottom. Anytime a warning is issued or a watch or a warning is issued, it's going to scroll across the screen. So that's one way that you can get that warning. Get your NOAA weather radios out. Make sure that those are good to go. Make sure that they got fresh batteries just in case you got a power outage. Keep your smartphones handy. Again, wireless emergency alerts are amazing. They're tremendous things in case a tornado warning is issued. They do not trigger on most severe thunderstorm warnings unless it's 80 miles an hour. That's a new wrinkle this year. But again, we'll be watching it tomorrow. Fingers crossed for nothing. And again, it's just like the best severe weather bust is the one that busts where there's no weather. So we've had a decent string of good luck. Let's keep it going tomorrow. But if that doesn't happen, you want to be prepared too. So make sure you know where you're going to go. If a warning is issued for your area, lowest floor, interior room, site-built structure, 3 good rules of thumb there. So, Scott, any final? Oh, yep.
Yeah, I was also going to say, if you can do it safely after the storms pass, if you do get any of those pictures, feel free to tag us on Twitter at Carolina WX Group. We can retweet that out to our friends at the National Weather Service, or you could tweet, if you know your weather service office, tweet it to them. But if you don't, tweet it to us in your location, and way we can make sure we can get it to the right weather service office that needs that. So
yep, absolutely. We value that relationship very much. We've been very fortunate to partner with them on some things like this, like the spotter class, and we definitely make sure that we share all of your reports with them to help their warning operations and help their verification. It is ground truth. There's nothing better than ground truth. I feel like we've been saying that a lot lately, but it's so true, and it is one of the fine axioms in weather is that remote sensing will not catch everything. You got to have your eyes and ears on the ground, and that's where the human element will always win.
I was going to echo that, Jared. We look at a radar screen, we look at our computers. You guys are eyes out in the area, and what you see is valuable, and that information is very valuable. So
yeah, I got computers on computers here, but I can't tell you what's happening on like Brittlebank Park unless somebody sends me a picture, in Charleston. So there you go. All righty. Well, I think that's going to do it for us tonight. Scotty, any final thoughts before we proceed?
Bring on the rain so we can get rid of this.
Bring on the rain. Give me the rain. Give me the rain. Let's make it rain. Right?
Let's
make it rain. Let's not make it thunder, and let's definitely not make it tornado. Let's not do that. So
we don't want no rapidly rotating columns of air around here tomorrow.
No, definitely not. The only time I want to hear "Humans Being" by Van Halen is me playing it or watching it on Twister and not hearing somebody down the street trying to chase a storm with me. Twister was on the other day, so I've been on a huge Van Halen kick. But that's neither here nor there. So for Scotty Powell in Morganton, I'm Jared Smith in Charleston. Thank you all so much for watching us tonight. We're going to be back tomorrow night too. We've got shows tomorrow night too. So we'll be around, and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, hit that like and subscribe on YouTube so you know when we go live in case something hits the fan. You will know. So always good to do. Thank you all so much. Thank you for your questions and your participation tonight, and have a lovely evening. And